weekend.
Yo, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the South Star Classroom. My name is David Castillo, and welcome to episode 190, 191, 190 and a half, 191. Okay.
I did a show last time. I did an accidental
Okay.
show last week.
No problem. We appreciate you. But yeah, we are here. I believe we're going to have a full house. Maybe not.
5 minutes. Yes.
Okay, there you go. All right. We've got a great topic today, a very timely topic. We are going to be talking about ICE, troops, and tyranny, ? And so we'll get into the content here in a minute, but let's take a second. We've got a couple of minutes to do some check-ins. I missed you all last week. So what has been going on in your lovely world? We will start with the Great Jubilee.
Hi, I'm tired. And I'm trying to figure out why school is still going on. As a human being that has children in school and that also works for the school system, I'm trying to figure out if the federal funding was worth it, because the teachers are at schools playing movies and I don't understand. And so, yeah, that's what's been going on in my world. My child is graduating from 8th grade on Monday, and he's headed to high school. So I'm excited about that. My mom's going to be coming down to spend the weekend with me. So we're going to be outside. I'm going to take a nap, and then we're going to be outside. And that's pretty much what's been going on in my world.
That's good. Congratulations on the graduation. It's a big deal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Charles, what smart comment did you make?
I didn't make a smart comment. I just said personally.
You see how I cut him off?
I think outside is overrated. I'm outside for a living. When I'm off the road, I want to be in my crib. You understand? Like Sinners is now out on digital. Watch that in my little theater. I'm happy. I get some food. I get some drinks. It's all. Hey man, I get some drinks. I chill. My auntie wanted to see it. She didn't want to go to the movies. She waited. So I've been traveling. She stole my answer about tired, so I can't use that. But when I got back off the road, my aunt was like, I want to spend time with my nephew. I know you hate outside. We ordered some food. And she got to watch Sinners. She was like, it's good, but it's long. It's definitely a long movie. So it's a long movie. But we had a good time. And yeah, man, it's a lot going on in the world right now. A lot to, honestly, man, I knew the topic. I know that it's like kind of out there. I haven't dove into it really. Like I looked at some stuff. I knew it was probably gonna be a topic that we discussed. I was like, man, I gotta get through this other joint right here. But yeah, looking forward to it. How you doing, David?
All right. Speaking of getting outside, we spent the day yesterday at Disneyland and California Adventure Park. So the two parks that are now, side by side where Disneyland used to be, they took down a parking lot and built a whole nother park there. So
really?
We were outside for 12 hours yesterday.
So are there three? So there's Universal Studios, Disneyland, and what now?
Well, Universal Studios is in a different part of the city, not even the city.
Okay.
That's Disneyland, and this is good. This is going to come up later. Disneyland is in Anaheim, and now there's Disneyland and California Adventure. So
Gotcha.
California Adventure is, essentially where the parking lot used to be for Disneyland. So now they have two big theme parks. Welcome back to the show. Mr. Omar Yanar is back in the building. Show us your kangaroo boots.
What's up, man? No, man. Listen,
His beard is bearding.
the Australians
Weird knowledge,
eat
yeah.
kangaroo because apparently it's prevalent like deer. I met them. I hugged them. There will be no anything, absolutely no kangaroo anything on me. And they were selling it, dude. They were selling kangaroo belts and kangaroo pelts and boots. No, I'm not having it. They were too cute and I love them too much. So be
All
none
right.
of that. But continue with Disneyland.
Yeah, welcome. So you'll do the check-in next. So you got a couple minutes to prep because we want to hear all about your adventures. So yeah, Disneyland is the old Disneyland, and then which is actually bigger than the original Disneyland because they have this whole new like Star Wars section, which is unbelievable, incredible.
I'm a Star Wars fan,
then,
so yeah.
Yeah, and then they've got now they have California Adventure, which is a whole different park, you know, on the same big, huge area. And yeah, we spent my son has cousins in the Bay Area that, you know, he misses because we used to live there. And so they all flew down, just the cousins. And we took all 5 of them to a full day yesterday. And it was amazing. I mean, we can get into the politics of Disney and capitalism and all this and that. But you know what? I like going to Disneyland as an adult. You know, when I go, my heart is still in a place where I can still feel the magic.
Well, they got a lot of places for you to booze up if you're an adult. You know, I like ESPN.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, that's where you took it, dude.
The secret is. Let me tell you the secret, Omar. Somebody that works with young people. I mean, just tell you, I'm not saying this has happened on a young person trip. What happens is you usually bring an older teen or a nan or like granny or somebody. They go into the park all day, and then you just start drinking, just bam, bam, bam. And by the time the park is closing down, you sobered up, and you ain't have to wait for teacups. You're good. You buy your kids a pass. Get your little speed pass.
You sound like you had experience with this.
So wait, man. Let me tell you.
I'm just a practical
You're straight up going to that like effed up bar in Star Wars land, getting liquored up on that weird booze that makes your tongue numb. You're just sitting there watching like people
went there yesterday.
out.
ESPN Zone is incredible. So I've heard. Listen,
it's closed down.
Yeah, I don't have children. I'm just giving y'all people with kids.
You're giving us tips.
Absolutely, because otherwise you're gonna go crazy. Like who waiting in a 2.5 hour line for a ride with no loops? Who's doing that?
Nobody waits for 2.5 hours. You can upgrade to a lightning pass, and you can get on. You can schedule all of your stuff now, so you don't even have to wait in line.
Hey, baller, I got you. I'm just saying everybody ain't able. That's all I'm saying. You can use that money for a lightning pass, or you can use that money for booze. And let them kids wait. Them kids is young. They need the vitamins, the vitamin D. Y'all go wait in line. You need this experience.
So, in closing, once we get into
that's the title of this show.
In closing,
I will tell you. Like we were not too far away from where all of this stuff is happening in LA, where you're seeing wall-to-wall coverage.
Yes,
I can assure you, there was no trace of that at Disneyland. The park was filled with domestic and international and immigrant children and families. And there, except for one Karen that we saw that got upset because some teenagers cut in front of her in line, everybody was happy. So there you go.
See, everybody can't afford that pass, B.
Yeah, and the Karen was not an immigrant; she was a white woman.
Oh boy!
Yeah.
What did she do to the teens?
Some teenagers. Yeah, the teenagers I think were Latino. The teenagers like cut in front, whatever. They were in line. They left. They came back, and then she made a big deal out of it. They had to call security for her. I'm like, why do you do this here? This is not the place. It's not the place. Yeah. So now she got escorted out. She started filming it, and then I'm like, you're gonna film them carrying you out of Disneyland now?
That's amazing. Does that shit go as viral as the ice raids?
Yeah, I think the ice raids have taken
slightly surpassed.
Yeah,
slightly surpassed. That was a good check-in, man. Star Wars Land's incredible.
Oh, love it.
It's an amazing place. So
I would like to go see that. They have a Super Mario Brothers thing. I think it's in Japan, but it looks so incredible. Like I would go see it. They got the
at Universal Studios, right?
No, I think it might be. Is it one in Universal Studios? I know they got one in Japan. I don't know.
You're talking about the Japanese one. Yeah.
I don't know. I gotta find it. Whether it's in Japan or here, I would definitely go do that as a big kid.
Yeah, there's two of them. There's one in Florida, and then there's, I think, a whole like Super Mario Kart land scenario in Japan as well.
Oh my goodness.
I think I saw it online, but like maybe our audience knows a little bit better than us. Like, comment in, not on the South Star Classroom, but them damn kids need to wait, which is the new name of the show. Let them damn kids wait. Let them damn dogs and kids wait.
You already
Funny as hell.
spending G's on them to go to this thing. Like that,
Yeah.
you gotta have some character building in it somewhere. That's all. I'm
But
sorry.
man, I'll quickly segue into what's going on. So a couple fun things. My niece got grounded, and as part of that grounding, because she messed up, I'm not going to go into the specifics, we took Disneyland away from her. So we were supposed to go the first week in June, and it was like, well, dude, like we can't give you Disneyland. You know, what kind of punishment is that? Like, hey, man, you're grounded, but we're still all going to Disneyland. So we took that shit away from her. And just the mathematics of the amount of money it takes to go, the hotel, the tickets, and granted, we're like season pass holders as well, man. So we go with a bit of frequency, and those season passes, by the way, are like a secret trick. Because like, holy crap, if you can
a lot.
grab one of those, the amount of money that you save just from ticket prices alone. But like all of us were like, my sister was like, should we still go? And I was like, what the fuck, still go? For the amount of money we were spending on this place, we go to Paris and back. Like why are we going to Disneyland right now, man? It is so expensive.
You can go to
get
Disneyland
there.
in Paris. There you go. Go to the
Correct. That's exactly right. It costs, I think, Disneyland costs more than the trip I took to Australia, like, and New Zealand combined. So there you go. You could go to the other side of the world for the price it's going to take you to go to Disneyland. We don't have all the time in the world just to talk about adventures. I'm so happy to be back. I was in Australia and New Zealand, actually for work. So I was with Big Picture Learning in Australia, and then hightailed it on my own to New Zealand. And I mean, there was hugging and hanging out with kangaroos. There was the hanging out with the koalas. There had an animal called a capybara, which is a hamster that is bigger than a dog. I mean, just a ginormous hamster looking dude, and he's super cute, and they play with crocodiles, and the crocodiles love him, and they won't eat him. I mean, just things that I've never ever seen before. Tasmanian devils, which by the way don't look like the cartoon, look like a rat. A big ass angry rat is what a Tasmanian devil looks like. Went to New Zealand, hung out with the hobbits. If I could have skied in Queenstown in South New Zealand, I would have. But I'm talking life-altering experience to go down there and hang out with the Aussies and the Kiwis. More to come next time. Next time.
Okay. Right on. Welcome back to the USA, the good old United States of America.
Yeah. No, the Aussies had a lot to say about what's going on in the good old US of A, man. They're like,
well,
hey, we have you to thank, because they were holding elections when I got there. And every single political projection had the conservative part, or what they call the liberal party, which is conservative. Their liberal party is actually their right-wing party. And they had the liberal party winning. The Labor Party is kind of the Democratic left-wing party that we would consider. And dude, like the left party, because of Trump, like swamped, like just whooped ass, like they did in Canada, like they did in the UK. So I'm like, look, man, like we're suffering, but you're welcome. Like we just, you're quite welcome.
You're welcome.
I mean, they the OGs though. I mean, what they did to their Aboriginals, like, you know, for the last 2 decades or however long it's been. I mean, it went down there. So, well, David, what is happening in LA? Why don't you bring us up?
Yeah. So let's get into it. So, and you know, I think today is going to be. Let's make sure that it's more of a dialogue. I think we probably have an overabundance of content to talk about, but I want to set the stage and I want to talk about this stuff because we're all seeing it, you know, on social media or on television. But I want to take us back a little bit to 2020, when we were going through another period of turmoil, a protest, of resistance in the United States of America. And I want to be, and at this point, I'm going to talk kind of specifically about California because that's where I live. it just came out. I just saw a recent Reuters piece, an AP piece, and I didn't know this, but in 2020, President Trump attempted to invoke what's called the Insurrection Act, right? So it's an act that allows the president to use essentially the military and armed forces to fight back against internal insurrection and tyranny from the people, right? Using federal troops. I didn't know that because he's attempting to do it again in 2025, specific to California again. So even back then, the Trump administration was applying pressure on Gavin Newsom to approve military responses in cities like Oakland and LA. Remember, those are the two hotspots, right?
Mhm.
Nothing's happened in Oakland yet, but we're seeing a lot of stuff happening in Los Angeles right now. So essentially what we're currently seeing is kind of a repeat of what happened in 2020. And now we can look back at 2020 kind of as a reference point. The current resistance, protest, people call it different things. You can call it what you want. But the current conflicts have begun as a result of ICE raids. ICE is, I believe it's a wing of the Border Patrol, right? It's like a federal armed group that is specific to, doing the work of deportations, right?
Yeah, ICE is under it's Border Patrol is a different faction than ICE, I believe, because I think ICE is like what immigration and customs enforcement. It's under like the U.S. Customs Office. I know that just because of El Paso, like we have
Yep.
all those branches here, and my
Yeah.
brother-in-law prosecutes them for violations of the Constitution. So I hear about this shit like all the
Okay.
time.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was always been here. I think it got moved under Homeland Security. So
Yes, a bunch of shit got all
Yeah,
under
that's right.
Homeland Security.
there was an ICE. I think there was. I mean, there was obviously agencies before then, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think their power went up a little bit.
So
during
what
that.
we're currently seeing is and again, this is not not all of California. This is like specific parts of Los Angeles where we're actively seeing National Guard being sent in. Now we have a battalion of Marines from 29 Palms, so not too far away from LA, that are on the way, already on the ground. So we have like military coming in to quote unquote squash or deal with some kind of an insurrection. That's how they're framing it. The Insurrection Act goes way back to 1807. Okay, so you got to put on your historian hats here. Essentially, it allows U.S. presidents to use the military to quell civil unrest. That's really what it does, but only under extraordinary circumstances, right? I don't know if they didn't use the Insurrection Act on January 6th, I don't know if it's that felt a little extraordinary to me because they were going after the Capitol, but we can keep going. It's only been used, I think, a handful of times, but like very few. It's been used to enforce desegregation. It's been used to respond to riots, conflict. And let's see. So where we are right now is we're seeing, and this is very important to note because Donald Trump has been talking about Gavin. He's talking about even going as far as calling for Gavin Newsom's arrest, right? Because of all of the death in California. Nobody's died in any of these protests over the last week or two. There's been no death. There have been many arrests, but there has not been a single death associated with them. So I want to be clear on that. What we're seeing now are escalations on both sides, both on the sides of the resistance and then on the side of the government. It's very interesting because on the side of the resistance, people that are fighting back against these ICE raids, which do bring up re-traumatized communities of color, immigrant communities. It causes a significant disruption, in many of our communities. We're seeing other groups get more organized. I don't know if you saw the president of SEIU, the state's, I think, largest labor union, was arrested, not detained, but he was arrested for a couple of days.
What?
Yep. Yeah, the president of SEIU California. And so I think that has caused a lot of like organized labor to activate and get involved now. You have a lot of different community groups, both non-labor union and union oriented, that have kind of organized, and we're seeing that play out in the streets. You also see some of the more fringe groups, the Antifa oriented groups are now getting activated. So it would be not so true to call this an unorganized resistance, right? Because there's organization behind it.
That's some Star Wars shit right here.
Exactly. So 2,000 or more National Guard troops, 700 to 1,000 Marines coming in. We've seen that. That's happening right now. Trump called for the arrest of Gavin Newsom, right? Which is crazy. And then so just a couple more pieces here. I'm not sure if you were all aware of these planned national protests for June 14th, which is coming up this weekend. No Kings protests, which are organized across a number of different big cities: LA, Houston, Detroit, Chicago, San Diego, I think Oakland, San Francisco, Miami, New York. I mean, it's going to be crazy this weekend. So there are major significant and no Kings, meaning like no fascism, no Trump, right? That's
No scrubs. No scrubs.
No scrubs. Yeah. And now these protests are actually being supported by groups like the NEA, and in California the CTA. So now you see teachers unions getting involved in this stuff. So it seems like we're coming at this point where, like, I'm not suggesting that the ICE raids are not traumatizing, because they are. I don't like the way that this is going down. However, if you're there where it's happening and involved in a 3 or 4 or 5 square block in an area of LA where this is happening, it looks crazy. But once you get out of that, LA is a huge megalopolis.
Right.
Nothing happening in 99.9% of this city county called Los Angeles. And definitely nothing was happening at Disneyland. It was very calm. It was very happy. It was very magical. It's interesting because if you read and you look at social media, people think that California is like,
it's burning down. Oh,
and I can assure you, it is not.
It's not. Correct.
Where it's kind of crazy. So, I guess the first thing I want to do is just hear, like, what have you all been seeing around this stuff, and outside of like what I just presented, like, what are you seeing in your news feeds? What is your quick take on what's been happening over the course of the last week?
Yeah, man. I'll jump in, dude. Like,
I think we were yielding to you, brother. You had, you were just talking about the Kiwis and what they were saying over there. But
both the Kiwis and the Australians were like, hey, that's like, we're praying for you guys, because, man, it's fucked up. And I don't even think the raids were happening after I was there. So they're talking about previous shit. Being in El Paso, this is a really interesting place. So I want to just give a quick conjecture about what's happening here and then what I'm seeing nationally. There are immigration raids happening here in El Paso. The thing is that most of the people that work for ICE and Border Patrol, like, dude, these are like compas. Like, compas is like a Spanish word, compadres, meaning like the literal meaning is like co-parent, as in like a godfather, but like compadres is used colloquially to be like, that's my buddy, that's my dude, that's my lady, like those are my people. And they're having massive conflicts because they're like, we're not going to enforce this. Like, nope. So they're pushing back, and there's fights going on between those organizations in El Paso because they're not actually willing to enforce that. In places like Los Angeles, just from the news feeds and what I saw on Instagram, like, I saw part of the 101 shut down. And that in and of itself, like, I've driven on the 101, it ain't the 405, but the 101's a major highway going through Los Angeles, dude. And to shut down the 101, I'm like, holy crap. Now, granted, I bet the string of the 101 was probably right by downtown. So, you get a mile up, a mile down. I bet there wasn't much going on, but just to shut down that one partition, I thought was nuts. I don't think I've ever seen quite anything like it. And then they were like throwing rocks and shit at the cop cars and like destroying the cop cars. Like there was some heavy shit going down in LA. And then I subsequently saw mass protests happening in places like Austin, where like police violence was utilized. So I think what we're seeing is both a well calculated televised resistance to what I believe to be, from Donald Trump and this administration, a well televised and calculated fear mongering campaign. It's kind of brilliant. Like the people are understanding that their protest must also be televised, and we're going to outdo you in this fear of both not only the civil unrest and protest, but also the television and the broadcasting of it. Because I think what they're doing is like not fighting fire with fire, fighting fire with water. They're like, oh, here's the fire you're trying to create of extreme terror and extreme fear, and basically like Gestapo-like tactics to get us all quivering. We're going to douse that shit with like a fire hydrant and show you what civil unrest really looks like. And I think people across the country are wondering, like, is this just like these big cities? So what is middle America thinking about all this? Are they excited for these raids? Are they wondering what's happening? Or are they also kind of looking at this and being like, this is out of control? Because I'm wondering kind of what the opinions of middle America is on this one, less than what's going on in major cities.
It's definitely been confusing. It's definitely been confusing. I didn't want to cut in. Continue.
Like David said, it's a conversation. I want to hear what it's been like. I would love to hear your opinion. Like, what is happening?
Yeah, man. Also, RIP to Mr. James. That was my neighbor from across the street. The Mexican cat with the black and the Mexican kid and the black son. He passed away from his cancer. But we spent a lot of time. We know it was coming. That's why he was up fussing at his son at 5 a.m. saying, you got to oil these trucks up, man. You got to do this. Like they didn't know until later. The older one knew. His first son knew, but the younger one didn't. So he was trying to get him ready. Anyway, they're selling their house, but we would have these conversations, and it's really confusing. So, definitely like, what does solidarity look like during this time? There's actually some things I've run into people here that are saying things. They're Latino people, Hispanic people. I don't, whichever. I know different people like different terms here. They say Hispanic a lot more, but they were saying, well, you want to be in America? Why are you using this American flag? I mean, this Mexican flag. Like things that I didn't necessarily.
I've heard that shit too.
And I didn't.
That's great.
And they were just like, if you don't want to be here, then you can go. And it reminds me, like, because it's also not it's targeting Latino communities now, but there's also a lot of African immigrants or people, or from the Caribbean or whatever. But it's reminding me of a lot of internal beefs that we brought up here before, right? Around like, Black folks, they call them FBAs, or foundational Black people who are descendants of American slaves versus these other groups. I just didn't know it was as splintered as it was. And then I've seen splintering between Black and brown communities, where it's like, and just doing this research and like, because I was already writing something on it because it was just so much misinformation about like relations and things. Like I was looking for like, places where we build coalitions together. And oftentimes those coalitions were built together, but there was also like this understanding of, but I'm going to get brown shit first, or I'm going to get Black shit first. So it's been a little, I think here, it really hasn't been as cut and dry. I think when you get closer into the city, you see more of the solidarity. Right. That's where the things are happening. But on these outskirts and these places, and especially like the Hispanic like suburbs that I hang out in, like that I'll go and like, to the bar or go chill. It's a lot more split than what I would have thought. And you just listen, right? Because again, you trying to show up and be like, yo, like if it was some stuff with us, you know, and again, I think this impacts all of us in different ways. But some of them, and in the room, it wasn't like everybody felt one way. It's like brothers are disagreeing in this conversation. Now, again, we like are like, you know, 6 Coronas deep. You know what I'm saying? We get in the tub of it, but then the conversation. For me, I'm trying to lose some weight. I do Corona Light. You know, I'm trying to get rid of my moves out here in these streets. You feel me? But yeah, man. I was waiting for the episode because I was just like, holla at me, like let me know. And again, I know some of our inner Black conversations are starting to spill out and kind of be out there. I don't assume that these things, the Hispanic ones will play out in front of me, but it has been more and more, and I'm confused. I'm very, very confused.
Well, I mean, I don't think there is a unified Latino, you know, brown conversation, and I think that's the issue. But I want to hear. Jubilee, you've been sitting. I know you've been cooking on something. So what have you been seeing? Like,
I have not been really following this closely. Like I've saw a couple. So my strategy for not getting.
You didn't know California is burning?
I did, but I read the headline, so I have not. I've seen like a small little clip, and I read headlines because I'll end up going down the rabbit hole, and then I'll be like, I'm moving to Austria, guys, and it was really nice working with you.
Austria.
Vienna's calling.
Yes. Right. So I'm sitting and I'm learning, but I'm curious to hear what the tension has been about, because Charles said it's confused. It's like it's been confusing and things have been spilling out. So I'm curious to know more about what that is.
And David, before you go in, I just want to clarify it, like what Trump is doing, like this overextension of power and is using California as an example. I don't think there's as much confusion around that and that issue. I think that what I'm confused about is it wasn't this galvanizing moment like when I was in Oakland, Oscar Grant got killed. It was a very galvanizing. Everybody was like on the same page for the most part. Like that, I was more confused. I thought I was going into a place to like show some support and be an alliance, and it was just like, hey, bruh, we got to. I don't know if and that's so. Go ahead, David, take it away. That's.
No, I agree, and I think so. Speaking about the, I think the flag thing is very interesting. Because waving the Mexican flag in the United States of America is free speech,
right?
Burning the American flag in the United States of America is an act of free speech, right? Burning the Mexican flag in the United States of America is free speech. But I totally agree. I think what it makes me think about is, so we're getting to the deeper level of like, okay, we can see what Trump is doing. You know, Trump was fighting with Elon. Now he's fighting with Gavin. This stuff is going on. It's going to go away pretty soon. But it does provide a very interesting opening to have a dialogue about many things. And I think number one is about the nature of, so we're moving into this like anti-immigrant space again. That's very clear. Whether you be, they're going after Haitian immigrants, Asian immigrants, Latino immigrants, African immigrants, it's like Arab immigrants. It's happening right now. And it's, emanating from Trump and Stephen Miller, all that stuff. We know that's going to happen. When we talk specifically, and I think it's interesting because, immigration is not one thing. Immigration happens in so many different ways. Historically, white Europeans came over on boats, right? In the 1600s, right? They chose to come here, right? They chose to sail the ocean blue or whatever it says, to look for religious freedom and, a better life, right? Africans were brought here by force, right? Tied to the system that we all know of as slavery, right? That is people moving from one place to another. And it totally shifts the way that you see the world and where you are. Latino immigrants come here from South America, which is thousands of miles away, right? For opportunity or fleeing political persecution from Central America, now coming to Mexico. People come here from Mexico for economic, economic reasons, right? And then you have this other group of people that, have lived along the border, or in many cases, lived in the United States of America before it was even the United States of America, right? And so we have all these different iterations and versions of what it means to be a person of color. When we say that, we mean you're just not white, right? In the United States of America. And we all have a different experience for how our people got here. And so there is no one easy way to put it. And I think that's very complex, but it's also kind of where we can have these conversations. I think when I see people fly Mexican flags in the US, it upsets people like my father, right? It doesn't upset me. I know they're not rooting for the Mexican government. The Mexican government is partially why they're here.
Correct.
They're waving a Mexican flag because they are proud of their Mexican heritage, right? I think when people wave the American flag, I don't think they're necessarily proud of the U.S. government. They're proud of the American values, the American culture, whatever that means to you, right? So I don't get too caught up in that, but I do think it's interesting I'll just say it, for recent Latino immigrants that come to this country. And I think the further you go into the quote unquote heartland, whether it be as far as you are, Charles, you're up in Illinois, right? They're far away from home, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a lot.
Yeah. I'm going to say put the Mexican flag down. Let's assimilate a little quicker, because I'm feeling quite unsafe here in, small town Illinois, right? And so let's move that pretty quickly. But there are other groups of us that have been here for a long time that actually identify with the American Southwest, that have nothing to do with any of these geopolitical lines that have been created as a result of colonization, right? And so to us, the land is it's not a state, it's not a city. It goes back to tribal indigenous identification, with the American Southwest being the home of the Mexica people, who eventually moved and walked down to Mexico City to form and to build Tenochtitlan, which is the Aztec capital. So for so many of us, we identify with this land not being a foreign land, but as being our homeland, regardless of what flag we fly. So
I mean, I think Robert Rodriguez in his movie said it best. We didn't cross the border crossed us. And my boy Alonzo was saying, yo, we were already here. And just historically, one of the fun things that folks should know is that New Mexico, right? So New Jersey, New York exists in England. Been there, city in north of England. So they were well, that existed, so let's make New York. Jersey existed in England, let's make New Jersey. New Mexico actually predates the creation of Mexico. That's the irony. Nuevo Mexico is actually what you were talking about, David. The Aztec and Mexican culture had transcended all the way up into Santa Fe and New Mexico. And that's how far that group, because dude, there were no borders, right? There was no such thing. What the hell was a border? Especially according to the Native American people, right? When the Spanish came in, Nuevo Mexico was a thing already. And the Mexica is where we get Mexico. That is what that comes, and it now has become synonymous with mezclado, mixed, right? Mexican is Spanish and Native American intertwined. But New Mexico has been a thing far before even Mexico was a thing. Just to kind of reiterate your point about we were already here, and a lot of us were already here, and the border was created, and we're just dude, what's up with this? And the Mexican flag, by the way, for those who are not in the know, and I don't mean this out of a thing of ignorance, more of a thing of just objectively, why are folks flying the Mexican flag? Yes, you're right. It has nothing to do with the government. It has a lot to do with pride, but it has a lot to do with oppression. See, the Mexicans fought a war in what was it, like 1810, to overthrow 300 years of Spanish rule. And that oppression from the Spanish allowed them to raise their own flag, which the flag is the symbol of both liberty. And if you see the flag with the snake on top of the cactus and the rock with the snake in its mouth, that was the sign of Tenochtitlan, the capital of the Aztecs. Like that's where Montezuma, I can't remember if it was Montezuma himself or the Aztecs, where they were like, hey, here's the vision. Where you find this on top of a lake will be where you create the capital. And that is the symbolism of the Mexican flag. But that is a symbol of indigenous background. It's a symbol of overthrowing the oppression of the Spanish. So in this flag waving, we completely forget this is a demonstration of overthrowing the oppression of a government that's done us wrong. And like, what's an example of that? So during World War II, ladies and gentlemen, there was a huge operation to bring in Mexican obreros, laborers, right, to fill the huge manufacturing needs while all the troops and the men were in Europe and Japan fighting World War II. So women took up that ring, and that's all those famous posters of the woman, like we can do it with the bicep and all that. But guess who also were brought in? Mexicans. There's a ton of Mexicans in Chicago for a reason. The meatpacking industry,
Oh,
the
it goes up.
manufacturing industry, it goes way back.
Mexico Independence Day, it goes up out here. Okay, it is. It goes.
Hell yeah.
I will
So-
say, and everywhere I live, this is the place where I've seen the most cultural pride of whether it's the Irish, the Italian,
Yeah, right?
The Jokic people. This is in the United States. We have the biggest of I think they're Serbian, like
St.
or whatever.
Patrick's.
Like there's this is huge
Oh, right.
here. And here's the thing. I think the point that I was making was I know there's a complicated history there, but again, regardless of that, my solidarity in this as a poli-sci junkie is that this is an overreach of power. And I don't want people getting used to an American president utilizing power in such a way, right? Because what's good for the goose has to be good for the gander. If it's okay this time, and this is why this makes us go back to 2000, to 9/11. Because it's like once you get the Patriot Act going, and now there's a precedent, there's an appetite for this. If you were Middle Eastern during that time, like life for you was like hell. You know what I'm saying? So, regardless of the issues within the Hispanic community, regardless of issues between blacks and Hispanics, like we've talked about that in this show, like, and I've seen that come back up, like that LA leakage thing that happened or that kind of inner beef. Like, I think this is a threat to American values. And I think that's what I'm saying. Like I don't need to understand every single aspect of beef inside of a culture the way that you might not understand it inside of our culture. But if something is just wrong and categorically wrong, and people are getting numbed up to seeing this stuff, like seeing tanks in America on American land, bro, like coming through for like to take out either U.S. citizens or people that you feel are here illegally, like that's not something that I want to get used to per se. I like going to Paris.
We've seen that before, yeah.
And I like going to Paris. You know what I didn't like about Paris? I didn't like being in a beautiful cathedral and then troops with assault rifles come in and got to lay the place down because there's a terrorist attack. Like that's what's happening in Europe. It's happening all over that place. That's what's happening in South America. And I just don't want to see that happen here. So I wasn't trying to, cut that off or anything like that. What my message to the people out there is this, regardless how you feel, like this is something that's encroaching on what makes America, America. It is why people risk their lives to be here. And as much as this country needs to work, there are some values that I hold pretty close. And I think Trump, even though he has his beef with California, have your beef, but this is an overreach of power. And you're setting a dangerous precedent. That was a lot. My bad.
No, dude, you're good, man. I want to hear like just a point and a question. The point being like, I love this point And I know Alonzo's gonna love this shit, man. Like, there's a great movie. Everyone should check it out. A Day Without a Mexican, and like what would happen in the
Yeah.
United States economically if like Mexicans weren't around. Just real quick, man, it would lead to a trillion to 1.7 trillion dollars loss in our GDP. What does that mean? That means like 23 billion gone from Social Security, 6 billion gone from Medicare. The belief that these people are coming in and taking away from the system is just like bullshit propaganda. These people are actually giving a ton to this system, and y'all are gonna be like sorry as hell when you're like, hey man, how come things aren't in the grocery stores right now? And how come like shit ain't getting done and room like houses aren't being repaired? What happened to my plumber? What happened to my electrician? What happened to all the contractors?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, man, you sent this all back to Mexico. I think the big question for Doc is what is and for Jubilee and for David in this like fight for rights is what does this standoff between the United States government and California symbolize about sovereignty and not just states' rights, but federal rights, but more importantly, like how is this abuse of power being responded to with power, or is there an acquiescence that we have looking us in the face, much like what's going on with like most universities who acquiesced and like kissed Trump's hand so they didn't lose billions of dollars.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
is California
What do you
going
got
to
to
keep
say?
fighting? Although, because like, dude, Gavin Newsom came
Well-
out and was like, fuck you. We give money to the United States. So let's pull all that money out and see where you guys at. 'Cause
I think
that's-
California is going to keep fighting, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've been taking up a lot of airspace. That's why I was trying to wait. And I can yield to Jube and David. I won't lose my thought.
No, go for it. I'll go after you.
Okay, David.
I think California is actually just getting started. I mean, let's not forget that this is happening. It's very interesting because now it kind of reads like a script for a movie, as Gavin Newsom is preparing to position himself as the anti-Trump as he's getting ready to run for like president, right? So this is like the opening scene of this like movie that has not yet been made. And so I think Gavin and his team in Sacramento are very organized and paying attention and where they can, doing what they can, also communicating through other channels to make sure that communities are fully aware of what they need to do to keep themselves safe. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens on June 14th, right? So I think some of the biggest No Kings protests might happen in California. And so I think from the State House in Sacramento to our local communities, we're already seeing people fight back. We saw, one of the first ICE raids happened here in San Diego more than like 2 weeks ago at an Italian restaurant not too far away. And that's where you saw the first
I saw photos of this.
Exactly. So people were like fighting back and they're like, no. And they're like doing flash grenades in a very like peaceful community. And so I think, people in California are getting organized. I think Gavin Newsom and his team are getting organized. And so I think it's just the beginning of a bigger showdown. And so, yeah.
David, I feel exactly like you. I like, this is where I was going. This is why I wanted y'all to answer first, because I didn't want to get long-winded. I think that both Trump and Newsom are very calculated people. I think, and here's my wild take that I will disavow any of you from. You are not responsible for this take. Mm-hmm. I think Gavin is kind of happy this is happening, and let me tell you why. Because California's in trouble and been in trouble for a while. It's been losing people. It's too expensive. The values that it likes to boast have kind of been thrown back in his face when you look at the streets of Oakland, San Francisco, and LA with homelessness and trash. It's not the liberal bastion or this beauty thing. And what Trump is doing is giving Gavin Newsom kind of a clean slate where he can actually go real hard on these values. He can galvanize people. He can talk about our values as Californians and that is the actual values of the left coast and like what that means. And if you want this to be your future, stick with these Republicans. But if you want something where we can all live together, we can figure out the border control situation in a much more responsible way. And let's be honest, they do have to address it. Republicans and Democrats alike are like, we got to do something about this border in a humane way, in an ethical way. It allows him to not be able to have to answer for Obama being the president that deported more people than any U.S. president in the history of this country, which has also been, I've felt that smoke from Latino community as me as a Black person, right, who loves Obama or liked Obama a lot, under their breath is like, fuck him, we don't like him, right, for various reasons. So I think Gavin prays for moments like this, and I think Trump and Gavin are headed for a showdown, and I think it's going to be interesting. So David, I actually agree with you. I'm not trying to be conspiracy theorist. I just think in the political theater of it all, and I hate to say that, but if you study history, all this comes down to like a form of theater. Like even with King picking where they picked to protest, knowing that Bull Connor would overreact and they would be able to get these visuals, like it was political theater. And so it's really interesting. I think Trump is playing into it. I think that side has a plan. I think that side knows that this is probably the time that the country has the stomach for some of this stuff, especially with what I'm seeing and what I'm seeing from Latino people myself, like with my own eyes. I just was really surprised. So like I said, that's why I came in with more questions than answers. But David, I think you hit it on the head. I truly do. You might not, I don't want to have to tie you to my wild Gavin Newsom take, but I think you and I both living in California, experiencing Gavin Newsom, remembering when the world shut down, remembering COVID and all his preaching while he was still out doing what he was doing. I know he wasn't always your favorite person either, but again, this is a moment where he gets to rebrand himself. I think it's a political opportunity that both of these men are trying to seize. And what does that mean for people? What does that mean for you in the crossfire? What does that mean for you living on the border, you in California and LA? Sadly, it means that you can become a statistic and you're going to play to one of these sides. And it's just, it's a clusterfuck right now. Those are my honest thoughts as I'm still trying to gather and be factual and not emotional about this stuff.
Jubilee, what do you got to say?
I asked
you if you wanted to go first. I didn't want you to have to go.
I'm fine. I was listening for our questions connected to education and authority.
Yeah, well, we might not. We'll try to get there. We'll see.
Yeah. But no, this is very interesting, and I hope that people do fight back. I have not had much hope because in thinking about Trump and his connection with Elon Musk and whoever else, supported him, not just with their voices, but of course with their money. And I'm like, I don't know who really stands a chance, right? Like when you have that amount of just money backing you, then the people that are closest to you are supposed to be holding you accountable for not entering into these spaces where you are abusing and overreaching. They don't hold you accountable because they're being, paid off or threatened or whatever the case may be. And so my hope regarding Trump and his decisions and people fighting back has been very low. So I would say in terms of like what I've heard today and the small bits that I have read, this gives me hope that people they have a backbone and that they will be at least, showing up and resisting against this form of, well, it's not really democracy, is it? I don't even want to call it leadership. I think that's also a stretch. So someone give me a word. Yeah. So
let's transition to see if we can get to the level of so everything that we've talked about, how can we, and it's interesting that this is happening at a time when schools are about to go out for summer. So for teachers out there, for parents, like, let's wrap this up into our closing thoughts. Their closing thoughts are like, what is your advice for parents and for educators? How should they go about engaging young people? I mean, everybody's watching this. You got kids that are now like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9. They got phones. They're doom scrolling, you know, which is pretty messed up, but it's happening. So how should we talk about and engage young people in these conversations based on what they're seeing?
Yeah,
and I'll go first to give you a little bit. You want some time? Are you ready?
I'm good. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's layered, and I think it's an interesting question because I had a conversation with my son last week around things that were happening at his school, right? And you know, there's been a couple of acts of violence at his school, and he's like, "Mommy, they're not going to do anything till someone dies. You know, what are we going to do about it?" And so I spent a lot of time telling my beautiful, you know, teenage Black king, you know, that his voice does matter, and just trying to teach him ways that he can advocate, you know, for himself. And I think that is one way, right? To let these young people know your voice does matter, right? And to show them, you know, historical moments where voices and action and resistance have changed. And we have so many anecdotes that we can show them so that their hope level doesn't decrease to zero and then they become apathetic and don't bother fighting. Because I think, to my son's point, when you see something happening, you know, so often, and it's like nobody, the adults or the people that are supposed to be the responsible parties in the scenario are not standing up and saying anything. That is quite discouraging. So I think, one, just letting them know that their voices do matter, and then literally being like sharing specific ways on how they can advocate for themselves, for their community, you know, for their groups. And then the last thing I'll say is, like, we have a lot of work to do, because the way that our school systems, you know, are set up, many of them, you know, across the nation, they mirror this sort of authoritarianism kind of approach, and this is it's functioning, but it's dysfunctional, right? So when a student is told, right, you're like, do this, right, and if you don't, then you get detention or you're suspended or what have you, right? With no other consideration, their voice is not included in the space or what have you. This is essentially what we are teaching, right? Through the school system. It reflects that very much so. So it's like, yeah, you're here, learn this algebra, be quiet, go home. Like, we don't need to mediate. We don't need to negotiate. We don't need to take time to hear your perspective, right? And it's scary, but we haven't made, I don't think, as a nation, that we've made much progress in what our systems, you know, look like, and ensuring that our systems are democratic, right? Like, in the true essence of what the democracy should be, and empowering the voice of children and adolescents and young adults who go there. So those are my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll go quickly, because you made me think of something. We talk about, you know, school systems, and you know, the vast majority of like our large systems, you know, were created to help young people, you know, be successful in society, right? And so that's, you know, it's interesting to hear that now, because so much of what happens in our larger school systems is about control. It's about authoritarianism. It's about what do you call it? Not even assimilation, but you know, conforming. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And no conversation. Like, you did this, this happens. You did this happens. 3 strikes and you're out. Right. And if you're a young person, or if you're a parent and you've experienced this in our school systems, that's exactly what it feels like. You know, it feels oppressive. It feels like you have no control. Right. And it makes you want to just totally like pull out of the system and you know, just remove yourself from it. And so I definitely like feel you on that. I think the other thing I would think about is always, like I say, you know, young people are watching all kinds of stuff. So just ask questions about, you know, how they're feeling and what questions they have. You know, be as fact-based as you can to help them understand that this is not a new thing. Like, we've been through this cycle many times, right? These kinds of like where tension rises, and at this point, it really feels to be about race. And I would say, you know, let's try and figure out ways to identify where we can have, you know, solidarity in this, in our protest with all communities, right? Because any kind of anti-immigrant attack is essentially an attack on any non-white person, like heterosexual person, right? Non-white heterosexual Christian person, right? That's really what it is. So it's not just about like what's happening with immigration. It's just, if you look at that triangle of power, the upside down triangle, it means basically like 80% of us, right? And so I think trying to figure out ways in which we can identify, solidarity across our struggles and across our histories. And that's where I tend to find, areas of not comfort, but like, okay, we all have this common thing together. And so let's figure out how to like organize, as we address what's coming. Because I do think, and I say this in all seriousness, I feel like something big is coming. I don't know what it is, but something is coming. And, we'll just continue to track it. So those are my closing thoughts.
Oh. Muted.
Again.
Thanks. Yeah. I'll take a different take and just be quick about there are a couple books that I have in my house that are more reminders and ornamental because I've read them just especially what's going on today. So like Thomas Paine's Common Sense is like right there on my bookshelf. Like de Tocqueville's Democracy in America is like right there on my bookshelf, right? Like Rousseau's Social Contract.
We are some nerds.
We are nerdy as hell as shit, man.
Wow.
Just big time nerds. And it's funny as hell because I think back to, people are like, yo, when the hell? Yeah, exactly. When the hell are y'all going to use this shit? And I'm like, every day right now. And I think to answer Jubilee's question, I don't think that our young people understand the history and the difficulty of creating this democracy and how fragile it is. I would focus all of our attention on what were the guiding principles of this country and where's the bullshit. So for example, like, man, I in teaching Alonzo, like when he was in 9th grade, he wrote this quote, "Don't cross that line or else you'll be in trouble." Like I taught a huge lesson on the Mexican-American Revolution, how essentially the Americans put themselves and their military in a very interesting area south of San Antonio, north of the Rio Grande, that there was Mexico. It was not contested. The Americans thought it was contested land. And what it was an excuse for the Americans to start a fight with Mexico and pick that war and fight it all out. So the conspiracies may be alive on this show, but this is what I'm getting at in teaching our kids. Those things have been proven to be complete fact. Political theater, shit, dude, there's so much talk about FDR using Pearl Harbor as an excuse to enter World War II and to basically rebolster the manufacturing concentration of the United States, because if we're making bullets and guns, people are buying it. Correct. Like the Lusitania causing our entry into World War I and Woodrow Wilson, like that's all been proven. So I think
Gulf of Tonkin.
Yeah, shit, dude. That's a really good one for Vietnam. I think, what do we teach our kids? We got to teach our kids not just the founding documents and not like just the founding fathers. I'm talking, where did democracy come from? How much did we fight for it? What substantiates this ideology? Locke, Rousseau, Montesquieu, de Tocqueville, all that shit. And de Tocqueville wrote about democracy after America was created, but it was quintessentially an important document in the multiple French revolutions. But also the bullshit of history. Where did it get? Where are the lies coming from? So kids are smart enough and savvy enough to be like, wait, did this shit already happen? And aren't they trying to do this again? And what did we do back then to squelch this? Last thing, CNN had this badass moment where they did a live Broadway broadcast of Good Night, Good Luck with George Clooney as the lead. And Clooney did that on purpose because, like, is this not McCarthyism all over again? History is repeating itself, and we have got to fight against this oppression. And I think teaching kids, where has this happened before and how do we fight it and how do we deal with this bullshit, couldn't be a bigger answer for me as to how do we work this into education right now.
Yeah, man, I agree. Like I said, I actually don't think that is very I said that to lighten it, but I don't think it's very conspiracy theorist at all. I was just scrolling.
Yeah, I don't think so at all.
Yeah, and I was just scrolling Twitter and I was just seeing like there's just a lot of variation in thought on this from I ain't look at white people. I'm looking at brown people, black people, and it's very interesting. I think this is a time to have very intentional conversations about values, because I promise you in the heartland, they're having values conversations. And those conversations are not going to be the same for everybody. There are people who are just strictly America first people that feel some kind of way and feel like how they feel, and they're talking to their kids and passing that down. And I think that, like you said, there are some values here that we need to be very clear on. What do we do and what don't we do? What are the things that's in this box that we just don't touch? Because liberty is an idea. Like, it is an idea that everybody has to buy into. And if you continue to erode that, and you continue to erode, the expectation of common decency as far as that's concerned, you will wake up and not recognize the country you're in. Like, listen, man, empires fail. They fail all the time. I promise you, there were people in the Roman Empire that did not think they would fail ever. And so, I think that this is one of those moments. So have those discussions and don't stop reading, because I feel like we're getting dangerously close to like Chaucer times. Like this, the absurdity of when you read like a Chaucer, like we laugh at books like that. You laugh at those things the same way you laugh at, what was it? 1980? What was it?
1984.
Yeah, 1984. You laugh at, or you laugh at these things. You laugh at Animal Farm. Like, we laugh at these things, or Lord of the Flies. Like, and every day we're kind of getting closer to that. And I also would just say, for people that feel that this is beneficial for them now, you have to understand that this is not a traditional sword. This is not a lightsaber. This is a two-edged sword where there's no handle. It will cut both ways. And if you allow this for one group, there's nothing to stop it moving further. There will always be a justification. Okay. And I'm not a person that compares Hitler and Trump. I don't do that. I don't play those games, because that's a different type of evil. But as you kind of see, there were moments like where those things started, and you start to like, you're not as shocked at this thing that's being said, and you're not as shocked at this thing that's being done. And when we talk about an Aryan nation, and we just want a country that's great for our kids, and we want this, and because of that, then we need to go sterilize these people so they can't. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to do the thing that you learn when you are I was a debater, and the rule in debate is that everything leads to nuclear war, right? That's how everything leads to nuclear war. Right. So I'm not trying to necessarily do that, but these are the baby steps towards something that you not only have you not seen before, but if you study, we actually have seen before, and it would have more dire consequences today with where weapons are, with where nuclear weapons are, with like, you're just gonna see things. I just feel like this level of overstep. Somebody gotta like, yo, hey, Trump, I don't really gotta like you. I don't gotta dig it. I understand that you working on stuff, but bruh, you are kind of going beyond the pale. And when you jump the shark, man, the fawns can't come back. Like, happy days will never be the same again. And so I just warn against these things that we're seeing, because it's leading to something, as y'all said, and I don't think people are gonna like where it's leading to.
There you go. All right. Well, wow. Okay. So
I got in a Happy Days reference.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you all for going
Monday Happy Days.
Going on this excursion with us. I think we veered off course, and that's fine. It's good, because this is all new and fresh stuff that's happening. So I appreciate you all for going on this journey today, and there will be more to come. Welcome back, Omar. Good to have you back. And
what a week to come back.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Welcome back, dude. Now go back to Australia.
Right.
Take me with you.
Right now.
Take all of us with you. We will all see you back here next week for the South Star Classroom, episode 192, encroaching on 200. So thanks everybody for hanging out.
Jesus. All right, y'all. Peace out.